They told me I wouldn't survive the week. The newspapers wrote my obituary before I was dead. The embassies cleared out their safes. Netanyahu's war cabinet marked my name with a red pen on their target list. 3 assassination attempts, 3 failures, 3 reasons why the colonial powers now fear what we've awakened across Africa. I'm Ibrahim Traoré. I'm 35 years old. I've survived more attempts on my life than most presidents see in a decade. And I'm about to tell you exactly how the Zionist state and their Western masters tried to eliminate me, and why they failed every goddamn time. If you think African leaders can't fight back, you're about to learn otherwise. Stay until the end, because what I reveal about the 3rd attempt will make you understand why they're so desperate to silence voices like mine. October 2023, a delegation arrives from abroad, not diplomats, killers in diplomatic suits. They came offering security cooperation, 12 armored vehicles, they said, a gift between allies, German chassis, Israeli surveillance systems, French communication equipment, worth $3.2 million. I should have known. Nothing from the colonial powers comes without strings attached. But here's what they didn't expect. We're not the same Africans who bowed to their grandfathers. We learned to question every handshake, every smile, every generous offer from people who spent centuries draining our blood and gold. 3 weeks later, our intelligence, yes, we have our own intelligence now, not the compromised networks they left behind, intercepted encrypted transmissions. Every 6 hours, those gift vehicles were broadcasting my location, my schedule, my security details directly to Tel Aviv, GPS coordinates, audio recordings, real-time tracking. They turned their gifts into electronic shackles. But we cut those chains. November 15th, 11:47 p.m. My convoy was supposed to take the northern route to inspect our forward bases fighting the terrorists they've been funding. But my security chief, a man who's been fighting foreign interference since before some of you were born, detected the transmission signals 23 minutes before departure. We switched routes, took the eastern path through Kaya. 17 minutes later, rockets rained down on the northern road, military-grade explosives, not the crude bombs terrorists use, precision munitions that could only come from one place, Israeli weapons smuggled through Chad with French intelligence coordination, 6 craters in the asphalt where my convoy should have been, 2 escort vehicles destroyed. But they miscalculated one thing. African leaders don't move like European politicians. We don't hide behind bulletproof glass. We adapt. We survive. That night, I called my commanders together and said something that spread across every military base in Burkina Faso. They think African blood is cheap. They think our lives are disposable. They're about to learn the cost of underestimating us. The first attempt failed because they still see us as colonial subjects. But we're not begging for independence anymore. We're taking it. February 2024. They stopped pretending to be diplomatic. In Barsalgo, where our soldiers were already fighting the same terrorists France couldn't defeat in 8 years, a different kind of enemy appeared. Foreign-trained mercenaries. Not local fighters. Professionals with equipment that made our army look like village militia. Israeli-trained operatives slipped across the border from Niger. Their mission was surgical. Eliminate me during my planned visit to the front lines. Kill me in front of my own soldiers. Break the spirit of Burkina Faso's resistance. But they made one critical error. They assumed I'd behave like Western leaders, flying in helicopters, staying in secure compounds, surrounded by bodyguards who care more about their paychecks than their country. I don't lead from bunkers. I eat the same rations as my soldiers. I sleep in the same mud. I walk the same roads where our mothers carry water, and our children play football with rocks. When I arrived in Barsalgo, it wasn't their mercenaries waiting for me. It was my people, farmers who had lost cattle to terrorists, mothers who had lost sons to foreign-sponsored violence, young recruits who joined our army not for money, but because they believed in something bigger than themselves. They formed a human shield around me, not because I ordered it, because they chose it. The plot collapsed within hours. We captured 12 infiltrators alive. Under interrogation, they revealed their funding source. Development contracts channeled through Israeli security firms working with remnants of the French intelligence network that never really left after we kicked them out. Here's what I told my interrogators to ask them. Who pays you more, the people trying to kill our president or the president fighting to keep you alive? 7 of them defected, joined our forces, because even mercenaries understand loyalty when they see it. That day I made a choice that terrified Paris, Washington, and Tel Aviv more than any weapon we could buy. I chose my people over their money. I chose sovereignty over their aid. I chose dignity over their development. And that choice made me more dangerous to them than any army. Listen to me carefully. What I'm telling you isn't just about one African leader surviving assassination attempts. This is about every young African who refuses to bow, every leader who won't sell their country for Western approval, every person who believes Africa belongs to Africans. If you stand with leaders who choose bullets over bribes, drop your country's flag in the comments. Show the colonial powers that we're not alone. Show them that every time they try to silence one voice, 10 more rise to replace it. March 2024, the night they came closest to succeeding. I was in the presidential residence reading intelligence reports about terrorist movements in the eastern provinces. Reports that, looking back, I now realize were deliberately leaked to keep me in one location. My guards reported unusual drone activity near the compound. Not media drones, military surveillance units with Israeli signatures on their communication frequencies. Within minutes, we understood. This wasn't reconnaissance. This was the final phase of a coordinated elimination operation. 11:23 p.m. Explosions tore through our outer perimeter, not random attacks, precise strikes on our communication towers, power grid, and escape routes. Snipers positioned on rooftops across 4 different buildings opened coordinated fire. This wasn't terrorism. This was warfare. I grabbed the radio and told my commanders something that saved all our lives. You don't die for Ibrahim Traoré. You live for Burkina Faso. Hold the line, but hold it smart. For 4 hours, we fought in complete darkness. Bullets shattered every window in the residence. Smoke grenades choked the air. My ears still ring from the sound of betrayal because the attackers weren't just foreigners. Intelligence later confirmed that local collaborators, bribed with promises of wealth and power, had guided them through our defenses. But here's what they didn't account for. We don't fight like European armies. We don't follow their rules. We don't break when the lights go out. At 3:17 a.m., I did something that shocked even my own security team. I walked outside, into the gunfire, into the smoke, carrying nothing but the flag of Burkina Faso. Not because I'm suicidal, because I understood something they never will. You can't kill an idea with bullets. You can't assassinate a movement with bombs. You can't break people who have already decided they'd rather die free than live as slaves. The attackers stopped firing, not because they ran out of ammunition, because they realized they were shooting at something bigger than one man. At sunrise, the foreign operatives retreated across the border. Their local collaborators surrendered or fled. And I stood on the steps of the presidential palace covered in dust and smoke and raised our flag. The crowd that gathered wasn't there because they heard gunshots. They were there because they knew, as long as that flag flies, Africa will not bow. That morning I said one sentence that circled the globe in every language. If they tried 3 times to kill me, they already know. I cannot be bought, I cannot be broken, and I will never beg for permission to defend my people. Netanyahu's government denied everything, called it African paranoia. Their foreign ministry issued statements about regional instability and conspiracy theories. The Western media painted me as a destabilizing influence. CNN ran segments questioning my mental stability. BBC called me Africa's most dangerous leader. Le Monde published articles about my anti-Western rhetoric threatening regional peace. They're puppets across Africa. Presidents who still take orders from Paris, leaders who bow to Washington for aid money, ministers who sell mining rights for personal bank accounts. They whispered in closed-door meetings that I was too confrontational, too radical, too dangerous for their version of stability. The same stability that keeps African resources flowing to European banks while African children starve. But while they whispered in their air-conditioned conference rooms, something else was happening in the streets. Across Africa, a different story spread, not through their controlled media channels, not through their bought journalists, through WhatsApp groups, through university campuses, through the voices of young Africans who were tired of being told to stay quiet while their continent was robbed blind. In Bamako, murals appeared overnight on every major street. 3 times he lived, Africa will not die. Artists painted my face next to Sankara, next to Lumumba, next to Nkrumah, not as heroes, but as proof that the spirit of resistance never dies. In Conakry, students marched through the capital with signs reading, "Sovereignty is not negotiable." The same students whose professors had been teaching them to worship Western development models. Now they were asking different questions. Why do we need permission to control our own gold? Why do we apologize for defending our own borders? In Lagos, musicians wrote songs about the night bullets couldn't break Burkina Faso. Afrobeats artists who had never touched politics suddenly found their voices. 3 times became an anthem played in clubs from Cape Town to Cairo. Young people danced to lyrics about resistance, about refusing to bow, about leaders who choose death over slavery. In Addis Ababa, young leaders gathered in coffee shops and asked the same question that was spreading like wildfire across the continent. If Traoré can survive 3 attempts, what's our excuse for staying silent? If one small nation can stand up to the entire Western military machine, what are we afraid of? In Nairobi, university students organized sovereignty seminars, studying how Burkina Faso expelled French forces, how we nationalized our gold mines, how we built alliances with Russia and China instead of begging for Western aid. In Accra, market women started calling me the survivor, not because I dodged bullets, but because I represented something they thought was dead, African dignity that couldn't be bought or intimidated. In Kinshasa, opposition leaders who had been silent for decades suddenly found courage to challenge their Western-backed dictators. They pointed to Burkina Faso and said, "If those people can fight, so can we." But here's what terrified them most. It wasn't just politicians taking notice. It was the military officers, the ones who had been trained to maintain Western interests. Colonels in Chad started asking why French bases still occupied their territory. Generals in Niger began questioning why uranium profits flowed to Paris while their people lived without electricity. Captains across the Sahel wondered why they were fighting terrorism that mysteriously appeared whenever their countries tried to control their own resources. Every failed assassination attempt has created something they fear more than my life. Proof that African leaders can fight back and win. Proof that sovereignty isn't just a word in political science textbooks. It's a choice that requires blood, sweat, and the willingness to face down the most powerful military machines on earth. They wanted to eliminate one troublemaker, kill one radical president who refused to follow their script. Instead, they created a movement that spans from Dakar to Kampala, from Tripoli to Cape Town. They turned 3 failed assassination attempts into 3 recruiting campaigns for African independence. Now, every young African who watches foreign diplomats make demands remembers they couldn't kill Traoré. Maybe they can't kill this dream either. Every military officer who receives orders to suppress their own people remembers Burkina Faso fought the French and won. Mali fought the French and won. Niger fought the French and won. Maybe it's our turn. Every president who gets threatened with sanctions, with coup attempts, with economic punishment for choosing African interests over Western profits remembers if they tried 3 times to kill him and failed, maybe their power isn't as absolute as they pretend. The aftermath of 3 failed assassinations isn't just my survival. It's the birth of something they can never kill with bullets. The understanding that Africa doesn't need permission to be free. So I ask you directly, if they tried 3 times already, do you believe they'll stop? Or will they keep coming again and again until every African leader who refuses to bow is either bought, broken, or buried? Understand this clearly. Every bullet they fired at me was aimed at every young African who dares to dream of true independence. Every plot they hatched was designed to kill the idea that Africa belongs to Africans. But we will not bow to their pressure. We will not forget their crimes. We will not surrender our sovereignty for their approval. This is Ibrahim Traoré, president of Burkina Faso, survivor of 3 assassination attempts, enemy of every colonial power that thought African leaders would stay silent forever. They tried 3 times to kill me and failed 3 times. Now it's your turn to ensure their failure becomes permanent. If you believe Africa has the right to live free from foreign control, comment, Africa will rise. Like this video if you support leaders who choose bullets over bribes. Share it everywhere because they tried 3 times to silence me. Now let's make sure our voice reaches every corner of the earth. The revolution isn't coming. The revolution is here, and no amount of bullets will stop it.